And welcome to this Monday, March the 20th edition of the OBX Wave Report. I am Robert Scribbler here to give you all the infos on waves for the Outer Banks, weather and climate and beach lifestyle. And I haven't gotten down to the beaches yet today, so I thought I would share this excellent pano shot provided by a friend from Friday, and just giving you a view of the gorgeous sunrise here on the Outer Banks, as viewed from the Nag's Head Kill Devil Hills region. And I think this is a good opener for the OBX Wave Report today because we've got small waves across the Outer Banks right now, and we are looking toward a big warm up that is going to be gathering steam starting in midweek, moving in through Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And we're looking at possible temperatures in the range of the 60s and even 70s. And one of the things that I'm taking into account is the fact that the models are showing warmer and warmer temperatures as we get closer to this big warm up. So this is kind of exciting. We're looking at some possible nicer beach weather conditions. Of course, it's not summer type conditions predicted as yet, but once I start to see temperatures in the 70-degree Fahrenheit range predicted in some of the forecast models for places like Jeanette's Pier and Buxton on Friday, makes me think we might get some rather warm weather. I was also looking at the climate models and the air temperature anomaly models, and it does look really, really warm across the US Southeast. So we might start to see some major weather news popping up as this warm air mass over the Gulf of Mexico is just set to expand northward into the southeastern United States, starting in the Gulf Coast and spreading on northward, pushing up a warm front ahead of it. And so for the Outer Banks, we're looking at Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday underneath that warm front and getting that much warmer than normal air tapped in from the Gulf of Mexico, this warm, moist, hot pool to our south, which is much warmer than normal. And so, somewhat exciting for those of us who enjoy warmer weather, but a little bit of a climate story there to it as well. And I'm going to get into that a little bit more as we get into the wave report. I did want to give you guys just a brief overview of the wave conditions across the Outer Banks right now. We've got waves in the range of 1 to 3 feet all across the Outer Banks today as a cold high pressure system builds in here in the Manteo Nags Head area. We've got beautiful cerulean cobalt blue skies overhead. It's just gorgeous, like this big, beautiful embrace of color for all of us here in the Outer Banks. And then as we head south, we've got some clouds associated with a little impulse that is trying to get together here off the front that came through on Saturday and then stalled out off the East Coast. And this wasn't really predicted. There's a bit of a bend in the front. There's a low pressure center here trying to form. Nothing major, but beaches south are now getting some clouds, some possible light rain, and it's likely that the southern beaches are going to see those clouds persist through most of the day as that impulse heads on off to the east. And so in places like Buxton and Billy Mitchell, we might get some clouds and light rain today and into this evening. But overall, this isn't, at least for now, expected to be a major weather event. The impulse is expected to move offshore by tomorrow. So a minor low pressure impulse to our south heading off to the east and bringing some cloudy weather with it for the southern Outer Banks. For the northern Outer Banks, we're not likely to see much in the way of clouds in association with the system. Generally today, temperatures expected to be pretty cold in the middle 40s for most locations, with those 1 to 3 foot waves out of a chill North Atlantic Ocean under a chilly high pressure system. But so we have smallish waves, but as we look toward later in the week, we're looking for a big warm up. So yeah, so that's a summation of the conditions here for the Outer Banks. I'm looking at the total cloud water model right now just to give you guys an idea where the clouds are. And we've got, I just want to refresh this just so you can see. So we've got this massive front, and I just want to show you this front. It's huge. It's got elements that touch England, and just this huge, almost contiguous line of clouds coming in from Texas across the Caribbean, moving across the North Atlantic, then swooping back toward Newfoundland and Greenland and Baffin Bay, and then trailing south of Iceland down through the British Isles and then up through the North Sea region and into Scandinavia. So just this massive confluence of clouds, kind of a big old integral cloud system joined together by a bunch of low pressure systems. It's just a bit of an interesting feature here in the water model, and on the satellite you can't really see the whole integral nature of it, at least the satellite images that I use, but I bet you could, if you pasted all the satellite images from all the satellites together, you get this just gorgeous swoop of clouds over all these regions of the world. So just kind of a bit of a spectacle there. And then you can see yet another river of moisture heading in toward California. Um, this is the predicted atmospheric river that was expected to get into California today, and we're seeing it. So let's get to the geocolor composite provided by NOAA. We can see the atmospheric river pushing in those clouds through central and southern California, and then that big swoop of clouds coming down through the Gulf, down through the Caribbean, tapping into that warm, moist tropical air, and then swooping on up off the US East Coast and out into the Atlantic Ocean. And then the clear skies underneath that cold high pressure system um, to just to our north and west here in the Outer Banks. And then I want to show you the infrared satellite shot with those higher enhanced cloud tops, and you can really see that atmospheric river pointing in toward California on the enhanced cloud tops map, as well as the large system offshore here. And then down to the National Weather Service radar map, we can see the various alerts up right now, and mostly frost and freeze advisories out to the west in association with that cold high pressure system. Many of the small craft advisories and gale warnings have been taken down, although from Oregon Inlet south, we still have small craft advisories up. Winds right now coming in out of the northeast and north-northeast at around 20 miles per hour for most locations. So not too strong, although I can look out the window right now and see the dance of the trees. So it's a little windy out there. It's probably a little brisk down there at the beach if you do go out there and decide to dip your toes in the sand and take a little walk on the beach today. But as we head west, we can also see some of the alerts popping up over California, particularly looks like gale warnings out on the coast here. Yep, gale warnings out on the coast, and we've got some weather advisories up for the San Diego, Los Angeles region, and then some winter weather advisories for the mountains as that river moisture starts to push some storms in, and then out in the Rockies as some of the higher elevations get hit with some storms. All right, so let's get down to the local wave observations for today. And I am going to start out at Jeanette's Pier as I usually do. And right now, waves at Jeanette's Pier are a little bit small-ish, 1 to 2 foot, probably still rideable there at Jeanette's Pier with a primary swell coming in out of the northeast at 5 seconds. That swell is 3.5 feet, not lining up very well with those 1 to 2 foot waves. I don't know exactly what's happening. There's probably some chop that's inhibiting the wave formation. So we're getting smaller waves breaking on the beach than the swell we have just offshore. And then we have a secondary swell coming in from the east, maybe a little bit of a northeast cant. That swell is about 1 foot, and that is a 14-second period with that secondary swell. Winds are fresh out of the north-northeast at 19 miles per hour. And we've got air temperatures in the range of 42 degrees Fahrenheit right now at Jeanette's Pier. Ocean water temperatures still chilly, and not thinking that the ocean water temperatures are going to get much colder for this year. So we're at 48 degrees right now in the ocean water temperatures. We did get down in the winter time to around 46. So I'm thinking that this is the bottom for ocean water temperatures. And looking forward, ocean water temperatures will tend to warm up. Let's hope that's the case. This week, hopefully, ocean water temperatures will warm up a little bit, at least into the lower 50s down there at Jeanette's Pier. And then the weather forecast today is for bright, sunny, and crisp conditions to remain in place with a high of 46 down there at Jeanette's Pier. And possible little clouds moving in from the south later, but nothing too crazy as we get later into the day with that impulse maybe pushing some clouds up from the south, but nothing too bad. And then as we go to our next location, we're going to head on south to Rodanthe, which is down south of Oregon Inlet, down past the Pea Island National Wildlife Refuge, and at the Rodanthe Beach access down in Ocean Drive, where you can see those houses that are starting to slip into the water due to the combination of sea level rise and then just the variability of the Outer Banks themselves. But right now, waves are in the range of 1 to 2 foot at Rodanthe, and we've got a primary swell at Rodanthe in the range of 5 seconds with a 3.5 foot swell. And our secondary swell is coming in at 14 seconds as well. This is the case with most of the east-facing beaches along the Outer Banks. Primary swell 5 seconds, secondary swell 14 seconds. And the secondary swell at Rodanthe right now is coming in at about 1.5 feet, and that one's out of the east. The secondary swell coming in more out of the northeast, 3.5 feet. Again, those waves not lining up too well with those 1 to 2 foot waves, although I bet these waves have a bit of force with that larger swell behind it. Air temperatures right now at Rodanthe in the range of 45 degrees Fahrenheit. And ocean water temperatures in the range of 50 degrees Fahrenheit. And weather conditions for Rodanthe right now, crisp with an expected high today of 46. And it's partly cloudy to cloudy with that impulse coming up from the south. And you'll have to excuse me for a second because I gotta fix something here really quick. All right, sorry about that. There was like something loose down here that was rattling, so I had to deal with that. So in any case, yeah. So partly cloudy to cloudy conditions, crisp with a high of 46 at Rodanthe today. And then heading south to Buxton, we're going to go on past Avon, where waves are also in the range of 1 to 2 foot as well. And then we're also going to check out Buxton. And right now, Buxton is still the big wave spot for the Outer Banks, with waves in the range of 2 to 3 feet, with primary swell coming in at 5 seconds out of the northeast. That swell is a 4.5-foot swell, so rather large swell again with the primary swell. And the secondary swell coming in at 14 seconds out of the east, that is a 1-foot swell. Winds right now 23 miles per hour, fresh wind, onshore wind coming in and out of the north-northeast. So pretty high angle to shore, maybe even a little bit of a cross shore flow there. Probably chopping up the waves down there at Buxton. Air temperatures right now around 46 degrees Fahrenheit. Ocean water temperatures have just been stuck on the needle down there at Buxton at 59 degrees Fahrenheit. Much warmer, but 59-degree water is not warm by any stretch of the imagination. So please pay attention to your cold weather protection. Make sure you keep your hands and feet warm. Don't want to get all crazy numb, although, some of us just like to get out in the water, so we'll just stay out there until everything goes numb, even in the cold. But yeah, so right now, weather conditions are cloudy. So it's cloudy down there at Buxton. And the forecast for today is off and on clouds with a chance of rain this afternoon. They had some spotty showers this morning. Looks like potential for spotty showers this afternoon as well. And a high at Buxton of 49 degrees Fahrenheit. So not too crazy warm even down there at Buxton. So overall, waves 1 to 3 feet, relatively small across the Outer Banks, but you're probably still going to find some nice rideable waves if you just take a little chance to look. There's all so many little sweet spots, little nice spots to just settle into here at the Outer Banks. Find a nice little beach, get your board, go surfing, find a little point break. I mean, we have so many miles of coast, and if there's a wave out there in the Atlantic, odds are that eventually it'll find its way over here to the Outer Banks. Okay, so let's talk weather and climate. Right now we are under some colder than normal conditions with that cold high pressure system sinking in behind the front. This is going to reverse itself, and I'm just going to show you that in this model. But right now I do want to provide a little bit of an analysis of the global distribution of temperatures as we get a warm air invasion of the Arctic up through the Bering Sea region. And you can see that just giant bell of hot air moving north, juxtaposed to some colder air on the Siberian side of the Arctic. And then I do want to note the warmer than normal conditions over much of Europe. And then there's just a large swath of Asia, although we have had a switch to colder than normal conditions over parts of Siberia and India, which is counter to the trend. Overall, this whole region of the world has been much warmer than normal. I'm a little bit concerned about fire weather as we get into spring, and I don't know, we might have to do some special reports on fire weather. This region of the world has been very vulnerable to wildfire as the earth has warmed up. And then over parts of North Africa, again, much warmer than normal, and somewhat of a concern as we get into European summer with that warmer than normal condition over Africa can tend to leap over the Mediterranean and set off some heat waves in Europe. So we'll just have to keep a weather eye to that. Overall, the global system is about 4 degrees Celsius above the 1981 to 2010 running average, or I'm sorry, running mean. And then for regions, the Arctic is warmer than normal, tropics are warmer than normal, and the Antarctic is just slightly cooler than normal. And then let's see. Oh, I did not. Okay. Yeah, I lost one of my Earth Null School images that I was going to talk to you about. But in all honesty, the big deal here is the anomaly map. So let's go ahead and go through the anomalies, the temperature anomalies for the next few days. And I want to focus in on the US Southeast. And actually, you know what? I think I might fiddle around with this a little bit. Let's look at the lower 48 and look at the loop for the lower 48 because I do want to show you this warm up that is expected to occur for the US Southeast as a big warm front just pushes up through the central US. From this thing is expected to arc from like say around Texas, all up to just south of the Great Lakes. And then everything under that big bell of warmth is expected to see some much warmer than normal temperatures. And let's go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and just run this model. And you can see the cold air for today. Let's see, where are we? Now this is a March 17th run. Let's see, there we go, March 20. Okay, are we? Yep, here we go. So starting, this is a March 21. You can 20 run. So you can see the cold air. That's weird. Okay, I guess it's just counting down the different model runs. All right. I don't know if I'm getting the right. No, I'm not getting the right model run. Okay, for some reason this model run is actually going backward in time, so I'm just going to go ahead and stick with the global loop and make sure I've got this. I hope I didn't ruin this. Here we go. I'm going to try this one more time for the lower 48 and see if we can get the right one. If it doesn't do it, then I won't. There we go. Maybe not. Okay, hold on. There we go. Okay. Yeah, I just picked the wrong model, so that's my fault. Okay, so let's go back and I want to show you today. So right now we've got this cold air in place over the US Southeast, and I'm going to go ahead and just run this model forward. And this cold air is basically expected to start to fade out today and into tomorrow. And then as we get into Tuesday, we start to see some flashes of warmer than normal conditions as warm air gets dredged up from the Gulf of Mexico. You can see this circle here. That is a high pressure system. And that high pressure system is creating this clockwise flow, which is pulling warm, moist air out of the Gulf of Mexico. And then you can start to see the effect of that warm, moist air first over Texas as we get late into Tuesday and early Wednesday, and then up through parts of the north central and northeastern US. And then, so as we get later into the day on Wednesday, you can just see that heat building. Occasionally, you'll see a flash of cooler than normal conditions, but overall, much warmer than normal. And then as we get into Thursday, boy, does the heat really start to build up. And you get some anomalies up here, for example, in Oklahoma and Nebraska, parts of Arkansas and Missouri. Um, just like looks like in the range of 16 to 20 degrees Celsius above normal. So that's much warmer than normal. And then that region of much warmer than normal temperatures pushes in through the US East as we head later into the day on Thursday. And then look at this on Friday. So here in the Outer Banks, we really start to see much warmer conditions as we get late into the day on Thursday and then into the day on Friday. And so you can see that range. It's in the looks like 9 to 16, maybe 18 degrees Celsius above normal range. That is much warmer than normal. Um, you're talking 10, 15, 20, 25 degrees Fahrenheit above normal in many locations. And I'm looking at the forecast for Friday, and just look at this. It just stays in place throughout Friday. Looking at the forecast for Friday, temperatures in the Outer Banks here projected to be into the 70s, maybe warmer. And we might start to see some news popping up about a potential so-called eastern heat wave if these forecasts bear out. And of course, we're still 4, maybe 5 days out on this forecast, but this forecast has been pretty consistent. So we're likely to see that big warm up Wednesday, Thursday, and into Friday. Friday could be actually kind of a hot day. So yeah, I don't know. 70s here in the Outer Banks already popping up in the forecast. I don't know if this if these predictions fall into line, I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing forecast temperatures in the 80s, but we'll see. I did want to show that to you. It is also worth noting that this big plug of heat is coming out ahead of another major storm system that's expected to fire up some severe weather for the central US and Gulf region, basically in running from Texas through to the Gulf Coast region and then up through Missouri, Indiana, Kentucky, parts of Ohio. A front is expected to sweep through us here in the Outer Banks in the U.S. Southeast. I don't think we're going to get anything major in the way of severe weather for, say, the mid-Atlantic southward. But then as the storm moves into the Northeast, they're expected to see what looks like a potential major winter storm. So that heat is going to provide some energy for a major storm that might have some severe weather impacts for Texas through the Gulf Coast region, and then possible severe winter weather conditions for the U.S. Northeast. So all that energy heading up from the Gulf is gonna potentially provide some punch for a big storm system. All right, let's look at the NOAA quantitative prediction forecast, and you can see based on the color enhancements where the storms are expected to be most intense. And this is, I mean, generally the most intense storms are associated with the most intense precipitation. This is a general analysis that I use. And for the West Coast, we can still see some stormy conditions, but not as bad as last week. Some stormy conditions for the peaks of the Rockies, in the mountain regions, particularly as we get into like western Colorado and Utah and Arizona, and then parts of California. And then in the confluence between the Mississippi and Ohio River valleys, here between Missouri, Indiana, Kentucky, and Illinois, there looks like some potential for some very heavy precipitation. And looking at the convective analysis, looks like the major thunderstorms or the thunderstorm potential is expected to be just to the south of this broader heavy precipitation region, so running in through Texas, Oklahoma, and the Gulf Coast states. It is worth noting that the U.S. Southeast seems to dodge most of the craziness, and even the mountain regions, particularly on the eastern slopes of the Appalachians, looks like it dodges it. U.S. Northeast is, as I said before, under the gun for some pretty crazy winter weather. It's really not popping as much in the precipitation analysis, but for this next storm, might be pretty intense. We'll just have to see. All right, and I did talk about thunderstorm potential, so let's look at the convective outlooks. For today, no major severe thunderstorms predicted, although some thunderstorm formation may occur over the west and parts of the central U.S. And then same for tomorrow, basically, no major thunderstorms predicted. And then by Wednesday, some marginal risk of severe thunderstorms as that big warm front starts to push northward. And I do want to call your attention to the day by day convective analysis. So on day 4, which is Thursday, there is a 15% chance of severe thunderstorms. Of course, these are powerful, like tornadic thunderstorms, heavy rains, hail, possible strong straight line winds. So severe thunderstorm potential of 15% over a pretty broad swath into Texas, and then a larger swath toward the Gulf Coast as we head on into Friday. This is some slightly enhanced risk of severe weather. We'll have to see how that evolves in association with this warm front that then transitions into cold front anchored by a low, which is a bit more unstable. But so far, nothing too crazy as far as thunderstorms predicted, although we still might get some pretty heavy rains out of this system. And then I do want to show you the forecast as the warm front is expected to just bulge up here, just push northward through the southeast US and get up here into the central US and toward the northeast over the coming days. So I'm just going to go ahead and move the models. So for today, we have the cold high pressure system in place that heads offshore as we get on into Wednesday, providing that south flow. And then that south flow starts to pick up that moisture, and you'll already start to see the storms gathering over the Mississippi River Valley with the rainstorms south, and then the snow up toward the Great Lakes in the North Dakotas, or North and South Dakota. Um, and then later into the day on Wednesday, we get one impulse that moves through the Great Lakes and then up into Canada. But the second impulse is coming off the Rockies. That's going to be the major impulse. And you can already see the clash between the warm and the cold here over parts of Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, and Iowa, with the low pressure center forming on Thursday over the central US. That's tracking east. And you've got that warm front as we get late into the day on Thursday that creates this zone here, this battle zone between hot and cold. And you can see the heavy rains starting to pop up in this analysis. It just looks like really heavy, running in through Missouri, um, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio as we get into the day on Friday. Here in the southeast, we're under that big dome of heat, which is expected to build in. And we'll just have to see how that plays out. But it looks very interesting and possibly very warm for Friday. And then you see the battle zone again between the hot and the cold in that storm. And I lost my microphone for a second, so I'm back though. And then the low pressure center forms down to the south toward Arkansas and Louisiana as we get to the day on Saturday. And then this thing just tracks north and east on Saturday. It looks like we get some severe weather firing up near the Gulf Coast region. I don't know. The convective analysis hasn't really picked it up yet, but the global forecast system model does look like some pretty severe weather here for the Gulf Coast region. But then as the storm tracks eastward toward the Appalachians, it seems to lose a little bit of steam. It's not as crazy. So the trailing front moving over the Appalachians on Saturday is expected to bring some rains, but doesn't look too bad for the Appalachians as we get into the Shenandoah River Valley or even northward into Pennsylvania. And then most of the energy seems to focus north here toward the Great Lakes as the system moves north and east through Pennsylvania and then just pushes up through Maine, Vermont, and Massachusetts, starting out as a rainy system and then transitioning into a snowy system. So it looks like areas to the north, as like along the Canadian border, particularly, are expected to get most of the severe snowfalls. But the low itself is expected to hop toward the coastline, so we get big transition from rain to snow, according to this model. And then the storm heads on offshore. And then as we get into the day on Monday, we get another impulse of kind of rain and snow moving in through Iowa, Indiana, Illinois, and Ohio on Monday and Tuesday. It's kind of like just a not a pleasant rain snow mix, but nothing too crazy, although there might be some severe weather south. And then as we get later into the day on Tuesday, we get clearing in the Ohio River Valley and on up through the central US here. So, but cold and clear on Tuesday. And then on Tuesday for the US Northeast, you get another big, possibly rather intense storm, coastal storm, nor'easter type storm for the US Northeast. Excuse me. A little hitch there. Sorry about that. Okay. And then for the US West Coast, we get some of the impulses of moisture, but they're not as bad, although you can see the storms running in off the Pacific. Okay, so very long, detailed analysis for today. Sorry if I got too far into the weeds, but we're going to close off as we always do with the wave model forecasts. What I will note is that I got into the local forecasts for waves on the beaches. And it looks like this coming week is expected to be a little bit smaller when it comes to waves, which yeah, which could be good, could be pretty fun. I don't think it's going to be flat. So, but it does look like maybe 1 to 3, 1 to 4 foot waves for most species on most days. Friday, we might get some strong southwest winds in association with that big warm up. And if we do, some of those waves might get blown out, or we could have a situation that was very similar to this past Friday where you have a relatively strong base swell that still comes in, even if it's just in the range of 1 to 2 or 1 to 3 feet. So overall, it looks like the models are predicting smaller waves than they did yesterday, but nonetheless, it still looks like rideable conditions through most of the week, even if it is trending towards small. Nothing amazing in the way of forecasts, but nonetheless, definitely rideable stuff. All right, so for today, looking at the models in the near offshore environment, we've got 3 to 5 foot waves coming mostly out of the northeast. And those waves are translating to 1 to 3 foot waves along the coast. I'm going to get down on the coast and give you guys some shots of the waves for today so you guys can actually see what's going on. And then as we get into Tuesday, we expect 2 to 4 foot waves coming in directly, pretty much directly out of the east. Looks like translating to 1 to 2, 1 to 3, maybe 1 to 4 foot waves around on the coast. We'll have to see it. And then as we get into Wednesday with that warm up, we've got Wednesday actually looks like a pretty nice wave day with waves in the range of 2 to 3 feet, maybe 2 to 4 feet on the coast, maybe 1 to 4 feet, but nonetheless a relatively decent day. And then we have a much warmer day on Wednesday. And then into Thursday, wave conditions rather similar to Wednesday with warmer air temperatures. I'm not sure if the ocean is going to get involved in much of this warming, so we might have warm air, cold ocean, but warm air, cold ocean is a lot easier to deal with than warm air or cold air, cold ocean. So we don't really have a massive major wave maker out here in the North Atlantic that's providing a base swell though. So I'm not sure if the swell is going to be as good as it was last week. And then as we get into Friday, we start to see the influence of those southerly winds. So strong winds coming in from the south and southwest, pushing a southerly swell. So most of the beaches that are expected to get a swell are probably going to get like a wraparound swell. Although it is worth noting that the swell in the near offshore environment is expected to be in the range of looks like 4 to 6 feet, maybe a little bit on the smaller side, but 3 to 5 or 4 to 6 feet with those southwest winds. And then of course on Friday, it already talked about the major heat potential for Friday as well. All right. So thank you for joining me for this very detailed session of the OBX wave report. I did want to give you guys a little bit more analysis. I hope I didn't get too far into the weeds, but I'm always happy to have you guys join. So love you guys. And as I always do, I'd like to ask you guys to do everything you can to please help speed the transition to clean energy being wind, water, solar, electric vehicles. It's an advocacy that I engage in to help defend the beautiful coastlines where so many of us live and the beautiful beaches and beautiful breaks that so many of us enjoy as surfers and as humankind in general. So please do what you can. Don't don't be too hard on yourself, but at the same time, don't fall prey to cynicism and thoughts of what cannot be done. Let's think about what can be done. Let's engage in a little bit of optimism and action, and let's take our power. Let's have some agency. Let's get it done. We can do it. We can have a vision for the future that is benevolent and awesome. So thank you for joining me on this cheesy OBX wave report for today. I didn't use any words that are completely uncharacteristic of myself. I will not repeat the word that I used yesterday. But thank you for joining me again, and I'll be back with you shortly because I'm gonna talk serious stuff. I didn't do a Friday for Future thing, so I'm gonna do it now.